Good afternoon. I'm Francois Burman from Divers Alert Network. I run the Safety Services Division, and part of our risk prevention and dealing with emergencies out there that we try to assist with. In fact, we try to prevent happening. I also manage the recompression chamber program, which is where we try to make sure that we have chambers around the world that can treat injured divers when they get stuck. And with me today is Cheyne Benjamin. He's actually the son of the founder of the Papua New Guinea Dive Association, and he owns Walindi Divers. A very remote area, very part of the world that's difficult to provide first aid to divers in distress, especially when you guys are way out at sea somewhere where there's almost no communication. And so I thought let's chat a bit today about the PNGDA. It's a very strong dive association, been around for at least 20-something years that I'm aware of, and recently taken on the responsibility of the Hyperbaric Chamber. But more importantly, and in discussions with Max in the past, he was very concerned that Dan wasn't doing enough to help you folk when you get stuck out at sea. And I'd like to explain a little bit about that to you so we get a bit of perspective on there. So, Cheyne, just, how long have you been involved with this for? Tell me a bit about your business.
Yeah, thanks, Francois. So my name's Cheyne Benjamin. As you mentioned, my father, Max Benjamin, and my mother, Cecily, they established our diving business back in the 80s. So I've grown up at the resort, on the business, been there all my life. So I'm very familiar with remote area diving. But today I'm here representing the Papua New Guinea Divers Association. Was an established many decades ago by my father Max and Dick Knight and some others. To basically a collective voice for the dive industry in Papua New Guinea, so that we can work towards building, what we have today, and diver safety.
So it's interesting, one thing I've observed about the PNGDA, is that's how we refer to it, is it's pretty cohesive. We deal with divers all over the world. In some places, we have a very enthusiastic dive association, like in Zanzibar. They were fantastic in the beginning, and then it just kind of all peters out, because in essence, you're all competitors of each other, and yet you try to establish kind of safe practices to make sure that Papua New Guinea gets a good rap in terms of safety, right?
Yeah, it's incredibly important. We are a very small industry in Papua New Guinea. We're very spread out. There's only a handful of dive operators in the country, but we all understand that working together, it benefits all of us. And it benefits our guests who come to dive in Papua New Guinea. And we get a lot of people who don't just come to one area. They travel to many parts, the different areas in Papua New Guinea.
So your operators are kind of spread around.
Yeah, we're quite spread out. We get a lot of people who will dive one part of the country and then at the same time, try one of the other places out.
Getting from one part of PNG to the other is quite a challenge at times.
Right? It is a challenge. It can be a challenge. And but that's the beauty about Papua New Guinea. When you go there, there's not 20 other dive shops around you.
That's true.
You're the only dive operator in that area. You go out there, even on the liverboards, you will not see any other boats around you. And that is becoming much rarer these days.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's the big positive. So, it might be a little bit more difficult to get to, but the rewards are immense.
And I'm not going to get political at all, but when I was there, it was almost 20 years ago, they kind of put the fear of whatever into me that you need to stay where you are, because I was pretty close to the airport, at a hotel close to the airport. Please don't go walking around. If you do, get somebody who knows the area to take you around. And how does that impact on tourists? I mean, they go there, so we know it's safe enough. But
majority of us operators are in remote areas where we're part of our communities. We've been there, like, for example, our business, we've been there my family's been there for over 50 years. We are well integrated into our communities. We're very safe. Look, a lot of those stories come from maybe the capital city, and but even in the capital, look, things are a bit better these days. You're well taken care of as long as you stay with a reputable hotel.
Well, that's really the point, right?
That's it.
Which can be anywhere in the world.
Yeah, and they'll take care of you.
So that I think it was in the late 90s, the PNGDA and a business guy based in Mexico actually I think he was diving there at the time, realized there wasn't a facility to treat divers, and they put everything together with your mum and your dad and established the Hyperbaric facility at Port Moresby Airport, at Tropic Air, at the facility there. And that ran pretty well for a while, and then things changed. Who knows kind of what the politics are. Dan tries not to get drawn into he said, she said, and so on. And then Hyperbaric Health stepped in, and they put in a chamber, and the chamber was moved from Tropic Air, and that all evolved and things changed. Then we were back at Tropic Air, and at that stage, I got involved from Dan in what they call the Hyperbaric Partners program of chambers. We have about 10, 11 chambers around the world in places like PNG, Vanuatu, Fiji, and a bunch of other places. Pretty tough call to manage from Durham, North Carolina, but we have a great guy there, John, that is kind of our mainstay.
John Miller, yep.
Yeah, and Bobby Welsh, Dr. Bobby Welsh is also a mainstay. And it's kept going. I mean, it's I can't even count the number of times in my hand that we had to not turn away a diver. Of course, the number of divers you get treated there is relatively small, which is always the challenge with a hyperbaric facility.
Yeah, how to keep it
keep people trained and keep it up to date and keep it maintained when you've got very little income coming in. But, and this is the model we've tried with HPL differently to people before, because this is not a business for us. And we really want the local industry to take ownership of it, take responsibility, and essentially run it. So in discussion with Bill, you guys have decided to take over the chamber, which is fantastic. I mean, it's a structured thing where you essentially don't pay anything for it when we have claims.
We have, so Dan has obviously been extremely helpful.
And we'll continue to support you with training, with maintenance issues, technical issues, advice issues, and so on. We're not going to turn our backs on you. But we're thrilled that you guys have taken it on. And because it's an association, a strong one, the chances of it being sustainable are, pretty good.
So I think as you mentioned, the whole setup with the chamber in the country has gone through a few different variations of models that it hasn't quite worked in some situations, but we feel what we have now, I feel the Dive Association feels it's world class.
Yeah.
How it's set up now is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's held. The chamber is located at the airport with the charter company that does the evacuation. So when they pick you up, they come with the medical team, full medical team. Dr. Bobby Welsh, who's been worked closely with Dan over the years, he's the consulting doctor in the country. And when he gives the go ahead for the evac, the wheels go in motion. And that's it. The plane comes, picks you up where you are, and they fly you directly to the airport. You're wheeled straight off the plane, straight into the hangar, and the team are already there, waiting, ready, set up to treat you. That's quite unique.
That's very unique.
I think in the region. I mean, like how many chambers are operating in the region?
Well, it depends on the region.
Yeah.
But I think Solomon's is not that far from you, right?
Yeah.
Oniara?
Yep.
And we have a chamber there, but at the moment we evac them to PNG. And
some
of them are pretty far to the north. So Palau, Fiji, Vanuatu, Chuck Lagoon, they're all in that region. Those ones have chambers.
Yeah.
But they like a truck, it's up on somebody's property.
Yeah.
Vanuatu is at a dive center.
Yeah.
Fiji, it's now at the hospital, which is great benefit. But local health authorities in some of these islands are a challenge. I mean, we try to support them as much as we can, but local pricing is pretty difficult to make the thing sustainable. One of the areas I think that Dan has been really useful for all the chambers is handling the divers, the guest divers that have travel insurance. We take on that big responsibility. So essentially we go get the money back from the insurance company and then hand the money over. And that's going to be an interesting model when we work now going forward, because I think you're going to rely pretty much on us to do some of that is the most difficult part, is chasing people. And insurance companies always try to make sure that things were done properly.
And I think that's what we appreciate with Dan is that, and I think some issues in the past with that issue with insurance companies wanting, the 3 quotes. And whereas this model that we have now in the region where things are fairly well structured and organized in the background already. So, time is a critical issue for an evacuation. Sure. So we feel that what we have set up now is incredibly beneficial for the dive industry in Papua New Guinea. And a lot of it is thanks to Dan's support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the PNGDA play a huge role in this. So how do you get this information across to divers? I mean, do you actually tell divers before they come to you? And I mean, I know
Yeah.
this is kind of a mixed message
Well,
we're sending out.
I can't speak for everybody, but our business, if you don't have insurance, you do not dive. It's as simple as
Very
that.
wise. Yeah.
Because we are in very remote areas. And look, we do sometimes we run into issues with some guests who, push back with that. But we do our best to explain to them, you're in a very remote area. When things go wrong, this is why Dan is so critical, because it's one of those things you hope you never need, but the day you need it, it's, yeah.
And we're not just insurance.
Exactly.
I mean, we sent Bobby off to do a couple of courses. In fact, he and I had an interesting time because he wanted to get extra training. I pointed him in a direction. He went off and got postgraduate training in hyperbaric medicine, diving medicine. So thrilled he continued with his studies. So he's really actually world-class trained.
Yeah.
One of the few that wasn't trained in Oz for whatever reason. But it's not just really about paying for it. And he calls us. So if there's an issue, a difficult case, even though he's pretty well qualified, he'll call and have a discussion with our doctors. And then, of course, with the, as you mentioned, the 3-quote business, well, we kind of manage our own insurance company, which means we decide on who's going to be used. And there are no 3 players in the area. So that's pretty well covered. And Bobby's company does a great job. We don't get, charged excessive amounts that you might get in some places, which kind of leads on, Cheyne, to this issue of remote diving. Now, we pick up flack as Dan. So you have a diver on board, let's say an undeclared heart issue, and they collapse. Okay, now you don't know whether it's from diving or some underlying health issue, and eventually the phone gets picked up, and this happened before, because Max and I had this discussion at DEMA several years ago. And you phone Dan, hey, you've got this guy, you need to come and get him. And, the remote dive operators don't realize that we're there to support. We're not there to do. You don't own Tropicair's, aeroplanes that they have. We don't own, well, we do own the hyperbaric chamber, but we don't really, because we've always kept that very separate. And he brought a team of people to DEMA, and we sat around the table and kind of said, Max, please, let me explain how this works. Essentially, the dive operator is totally responsible for their guests. If something happens to a guest, you've got to figure it out. Insurance or no, insurance will pay for whatever happens, but it requires you as a business to plan carefully. If I have a diver that's injured, who am I going to call? Dan is not a hospital. Where's the nearest healthcare facility? Can I get there, or do I need to go back to Port Moresby, or is there somewhere else a drop-off point? Contact the people in advance. Sure, you can get a hold of us. We will start getting some of the wheels in motion, but we can't send a boat out to fetch you or a helicopter. And that's so often the expectation that people have from us.
And that's the thing. So I guess we as a remote operator, we understand we're often on our own.
Yep.
We are the ones who, yes, as you correctly point out, we are the ones who will, we need to stabilize the guests, immediate response on the boat, get them back to shore. We initiate the call. We do all the monitoring and obviously look after our guests.
Right.
And that is when we then rely on Dan and the in-country Dr. Bobby Walsh to do the consultations. Because some areas, there may not be a hospital around you there.
Sure.
And obviously, and may not have doctors who are familiar with, the, diving medicine. And that's why Dr. Bobby Walsh is incredibly important for the country, for the dive industry.
Yeah.
And then, yes, that support from Dan. And as long as they've got Dan,
or another travel insurance.
And travel insurance, but then, but then at least we know that those processes are already established in place.
Yeah.
They call Tropicair. Once things are approved, things start to move very quickly. And that is incredibly important for a remote area operator.
But, of course, we will support you regardless of whether Dan or not. Dan, insurance will pay for. So when we're helping you, we can then activate and approve. Yeah. If it's not a Dan insured person, then we can do everything, we can facilitate, but we can't approve an evacuation, clearly.
And just something else I wanted to touch on too was you mentioned about what we do with our guests, if they have insurance. Every now and then we do have people who turn up without it. And as you said, and as I said, our policy is no insurance, you don't dive. And that's where the temporary Dan
cover
comes in.
All right.
And that has been incredible.
Yeah.
Very happy with that. We can, if a guest just wants to do 1 day dive, we can just pay, for a 1 day cover, or a whole week or 30 days. That's a great service.
It's actually, some people don't realize, if you buy insurance, and I'm not talking about dive insurance, or credit card insurance, when you have an issue, you call them, they're not going to help you. They're going to say, yeah, we'll pay, submit your invoices when you get back. And you really need help. You don't just need to know it's going to be paid. And that's what we pride ourselves to anybody in distress.
That's what I've been trying to get across is that, if you call Dan, you will get help.
Regardless.
Whereas maybe with some others, you've got to sort it out yourself and then claim later. But time is critical in some cases. So,
You touched on an interesting thing, Cheyne, about Bobby and your organization. Because what we try to encourage dive businesses is to have a doctor that you know and that you can call.
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes they're contracted in, that's not really relevant. But if you get stuck, whether it's you or any other operator, if you're not sure what's wrong with the person, call. Call Dan, sure, and we will get you in touch with Bobby. But because he's registered as a medical practitioner in PNG, he can do diagnosis, he can give out what needs to be done, basically prescribe the treatments. We can't do that. We can give advice, and then we have to refer them to some facility where the local doctor can do them. You guys are really lucky. He's very enthusiastic, and that's why we've invested some time and effort.
Yeah, no, he's been fantastic.
And having Tropic Air right there is
and
great.
The other thing, as an association, what we do is every diver we have this facility, but how do we maintain it? How do we keep it going for the long term? The Dive Association has members charge every diver a small levy, like an environment and safety fee, we call it. Every diver per day pays a small fee. That gets collected, and that's what helps us to maintain and manage the facility, to pay the rent. And I have to give a huge thank you to Tropic Air, who really worked with us as the association to allow that facility to be on there, to be there. And it's a team effort. A lot of people are involved. There's volunteers. John Miller, he's the mainstay. He's the man, and he's the one who's the technical advisor. And if things needs fixing, he's in there.
And he calls me. Always told him, if you're free to call, if you get stuck, let me know. I know you financially support it. We do from our side. Send over equipment every now and again. But John is a pretty savvy guy, as you say. Now here's the problem with John. He's not going to be there forever. And he's made these noises
recognize
to me.
that. So
who's next? Who have you got on the wings to step in?
Well, this is it. We're still discussing a plan, but we do recognise that is an issue that has to be dealt with. John has been doing it for so long, and he's quite savvy and what needs to be done. And he lives there in Port Moresby.
The replacement is tough.
So. That's for further discussions.
So we sent over a guy last year. And were you not involved in the training, or were you? I don't remember.
No, I wasn't. I wasn't there. But
so
I was aware of it.
Rowley Goff Allen. He's a kind of a freelance. He actually used to work for the company that owned the chamber at one stage, and to do basically medical training to get the team over there up to scratch. And I read his report. There were one or two other doctors involved. They did pretty well as a team. And I'm sure this John's doing. But they knew what they were doing. When he left, he said to me, it's a great team. I know he did some maintenance with John, but you can't have him because he doesn't want to live in PNG. I don't know. We're going to be around to help, but man on the ground has always been the issue with these remote facilities.
There are some options. We are looking. There's also commercial diving.
We know that.
People there who it's in their interest as well to make sure that facility is there. And it's not that facility is also, it's not only for our diving guests, it's diver safety for our staff, our teams. They're the ones.
They get exposed the most.
So, it's one, as I said, it's one of those things you hope you never have to use it, but it's very reassuring to know it's there when you need it.
Sure. I know there was a French company, there was some commercial diving company that asked us to be on standby for them, and that's something you'll pick up now. It's a good income generating thing if it actually comes to be. But commercial diving, essentially they need to have a chamber. And what the chamber you have is ideal for what their applications are. So that's really, as you say, not just recreational diving. We got a call a while back. It is very unfortunate. I'm not sure if you know the case of the diver that got stuck in the dam, in the one of the pipes in the dam.
I heard something about it.
I got the call. I don't know what time in the middle of the night, because we're very different in time zone to you. But Bobby was right onto it. We got the team together waiting. It wasn't going to be a guy that goes in the chamber because he'd been underwater for too long. But the point is, there's commercial diving.
Yes, there is commercial. There's big industry there, and they need it. So this is how the Dive Association needs to work with industry and how we can all work together, because it's in everyone's interest.
But I mean, that's always the case. But the problem is that dive operators, look, you guys are spread out. Okay, so you're not really encroaching on each other's territories. I don't know how the liverboards work. Do they have their own routes that they then follow to keep out of, so you don't have boats operating in the same area?
Well, generally, the liverboards will work in further out areas anyway. So we're not on anyone's toes or anything like
do they leave from Port Moresby, or do they sail in from other places?
Varies.
Okay.
So we got different itineraries throughout the country.
But their stop-off point where they get on?
Again, varies. So, they'll start at Walindi, finish at Walindi, or start at Walindi, go up to Kavieng, or go down to Millen Bay and operate out of Alotau.
So pardon the ignorance. I know where PNG is, okay?
Yep.
But how do if I was a guest flying in, how do I fly in? I'm coming from the US. How do I get to
Well, probably the best way from the US would be to, say, LAX to East Coast Australia. So Brisbane, Cairns, Sydney. There's daily flights from Brisbane and Cairns to Papua New Guinea. To Port Moresby. Everyone flies to Port Moresby. Yep. And that's the capital. That's where you fly into, and then you connect.
And by
airplane, the country's so rugged. There's no roads connecting the country. You have to fly everywhere. You fly in, and you with the national airline, and you got a domestic network. You connect. Usually, you can connect same day.
I've never really. I know I've flown the national airline once before, but I didn't realize there were local services. And as we know, with the road transport, it's very difficult. So that's the benefit of having Tropic Air where they are. So whoever the person is that's injured, they've got to be moved to a medical facility. They're going to
they get flown.
Just so that you know, it's something that we really like to make sure that dive operators understand, is you are unique in the sense the person will come in, but they're not going to come in and go into the chamber. They're going to come in and a doctor's going to assess them.
Yes.
That diagnosis is fundamental. And so often they will send the person to the chamber where they can operate the chamber. But they don't diagnose the person. They assume he's been diving, he's got these kind of symptoms, therefore it's DCS. And often it's not. And that would be screened out by your medical team. So you guys are really, I've been there. It's really fantastic.
And that's where Dr. Bobby Welsh plays an incredible, vital role for you, for Dan, and for us, and for our guests.
It's for you, but for us, it's very useful to have somebody there. Maybe just finishing off, Cheyne, making a difference in the industry is tough. We can write articles, we can put training programs together, we can do podcasts, we can do webinars, but dive operators tune in when they decide to tune in and don't, when they decide not to. Now, some of the dive operators come from areas around the world where they have a sense of responsibility to their guests, and some of them just don't. It's a tough nut to crack to try to think, how do we get through this? So what we did, we thought would be of use to specifically PNG, but Indonesia, Philippines, and all those regions, is an e-learning course on remote diving. And essentially we structured a survey. It's on SurveyMonkey, but you're going through the same entrance point. And you do an assessment of your dive trip. How many divers do I have? How many days am I going? How far am I going to be for the nearest healthcare facility? What type of diving am I doing? And you go through and fill all these things in. And at the end of it, it gives you kind of a graphic representation of your level of safety, your risk level, I should rather say. And then you can take the e-learning, which really just educates you. What are the steps you can take to reduce the amount of risk? And then when you redo the survey, you want to move that very red towards yellow, because it's always going to be, there's no such thing as a safe. We weren't given gills. Being underwater is about as unsafe as you can ever be. And we're hoping it will give dive operators that are really concerned about this, especially folks like yourself, where you are very remote, a way to think, okay, I can actually make this safer. We don't want you not to work. We would just like to make sure that they have a good idea of what it is they're dealing with. And one of the one of the interesting things about this, Cheyne, is we always say, so you have oxygen. Yes, you've got providers, you have providers. And then I asked the question, so how much oxygen do you have? Okay. And a colleague and I went down to a country further south from here, and we asked the question, they've got 3 DAN kits. Fantastic. And they were what you call the DAN twin kit. So there are 2 22 cubic foot, which is about 4 or 5 liters of water capacity. And they sail 30-something hours. And when 2 divers, a buddy goes down and they're diving the same profile and one comes up, the other one, generally you want to put them on O2 as well. And I said to him, you guys can cover, you're lucky, you've got 3 kits, you can cover 3 hours. You need that person on O2 until you get back to the shore.
Well, could be a 12-hour steam.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, a lot longer. And I mean, all they need is a big, you come from a metric country,
we
right?
have
so
big bottles on our
50
boats,
litre cylinder, yeah. And that gives you 12 hours. A 50 litre cylinder will give you 12 hours of O2. And that's the kind of education we're trying to give to folks, not telling them go and hyper-invest. We're not telling them don't go. It's just a question of, forewarned is forearmed. And the course is free. All our courses are free. So if you like, I've got your email address.
Yeah,
I can
please.
send you the
Love
QR code.
Love to have a look.
And we've got a bunch of other stuff there on, really trying to impart some safety practice in. But it's a tough task. And if you have any ideas for us how to get through to liveaboard operators and remote dive operators to just do a couple of the really basic things. Education is key, but how do we educate these people?
Well, I mean, look, it's a tough one. As I said, I've grown up with the industry. I've grown up in remote areas. I know, especially in places like Papua New Guinea, you're on your own quite a few times. So we understand and also experience.
Of course, yeah.
We've had experience. We know what it takes to evacuate someone.
Yeah.
We've been through it. And I guess the longevity of, with my father starting it up, with now myself and my wife, we know what's required and what are the basics to handle and the variations of if the plane can't come in today, how we got enough oxygen to last a day or maybe even 2 days.
Yeah.
So
you're the exception, Cheyne. Let's just put it that way. You've learned the lessons.
To me, that just seems very normal. That's what.
As Dan, we get the call and they say, this guy, the worst is they are, let's say, a day of sailing away, down the Galapagos, or wherever it happens to be. We've got one of your people on board, you need to come fetch him. One of our people. Yeah, it's got Dan insurance. It's all one of our people. So when you've done the rescue and everything else, then we step in and, we'll give you medical assistance advice. We'll give you some degree of logistic information. But Cheyne, you are the guys there. Who knows better what the local
exactly? So we, especially in some of with the liveaboards going further out, we know where potential helicopter landing sites are. We know where potential emergency airstrips might be. Again, just for say a helicopter or a small aircraft could get in to then get you back to the main point of evacuation.
Sure.
Simple things like evacuation by vehicle to the airport. Is the road open? Is the bridge washed away?
Yeah.
Okay, if that's happened, all right, how do we get you out? Do we get you out by one of our day boats?
Yeah.
There's always a plan A, plan B, plan C.
Yeah. How do we get the rest of the people to do this? We call those emergency action plans.
Yeah, exactly.
And we've got a whole course on that we try to teach people, look, these are the typical emergencies you can have. I mean, you get boat issues, as we know, fires and man overboard and sinkings and capsizing, and then traumas, the cylinders falling on people's feet, propeller injuries. Then we go to the medical things with DCS, clearly is one of the issues. But then heart issues. The biggest cause of death is going to be your people that, as I put it, in fact, a colleague actually tells me, if you have enough money to afford a liveaboard, you're not going to be of the young generation.
Yeah.
And what's the problem with the older generation? We're the guys with the chronic ailments, So that's the reality. And, it's not just about, hey, the guy needs oxygen, the guy needs recompression. They have a stroke. Yep. We had a person with 30 hours of steaming away had a stroke. What do we do? Yep. Fortunately, there was a doctor on board.
Yeah.
The doctor complained bitterly, I'm on vacation. I'm not here to save somebody's life.
Yeah.
You can kind of think of it that way. But it's been great. As I say, I'm fairly well educated in the geography and certainly in terms of the emergencies in our chambers work. But we try to make a difference, and yet we don't really know the intricacies of where's the local landing strip. Never mind where's the landing strip, who can we get to fly in there? Those are the things where you guys step in and you know the local people. You have relationships with them. You might play golf with them. I don't know what they do for recreation where you are. But and so your emergency action plan is really the key part of it.
Yeah.
And trying to get other people to buy into that is a challenge. Maybe, as I said, that was really the last issue. But I mentioned to you earlier this issue with liveaboards. We kind of lived with it, so to speak, since I think the first major recorded issue that I have read about, where they lost 20 people, the boat sank. That was 2 decades ago. And they've stumbled along 1 or 2 per year. We had the Conception here, which was one of the worst ever. And then it started to rise. 2019, we had 6 or 7 burnings,
there's been quite
sinkings,
a few
reef
cases recently.
And then, of course, 2020, it all went down to 0. So we started again from 0. But 2024, we've had 22 liveaboard issues, fires, overturning, capsize, breaching, and so on. Never mind injuries of people. We're talking about boat injuries, and then with that, a couple of fatalities too. So feel for us. We're going to reach out to you. You guys are the guys with the knowledge. But we have to come up with a way of engaging with them. With you, it would be a walk in the park, not only because of your experience, but you've got the PNGDA. And that would be the kind of starting point.
Yes, that's the central point.
Where you can say, hey guys, this is our industry is getting a bad rap in this region. We want to get your skippers together. We want to get your boat crew together. We want you guys to, take care of your maintenance. Take care of some of the...
we're very fortunate in Papua New Guinea that the safety, the maritime safety is quite strict. It's based on Australian standards. So we get, we operate 2 liveaboards. So we're constantly, get checked on, and we got to be up there with those standards, or else the boat they'll shut the boat down. So I guess that's a good thing. It does make it a lot harder, but it's a good thing overall, and it's for everyone's safety. And there's policies on boards with certain charging points with batteries and lithium. And,
fantastic. That's the music to
there's
my
all
ears,
sort of that. Evac points and making
points,
sure that people can get out easily.
You heard what happened in the Conception. That was really a total nightmare. I can't imagine being down where it's dark and you can't breathe, and it's total panic. I wouldn't know which end of the boat to run towards.
So, with our new boat, it's very easy to get out of, which is very important.
Key is educating the passengers.
The crew and the passengers.
The passengers they know these things. What does the alarm mean? What does it mean, when we have to get to the muster point? What to bring, what to leave behind. Anyway, it's been great. Cheyne, I've now realized I have a source of useful information. I want to send you this remote diving survey to take, really for your feedback. It's free to anybody that wants to take it, but I know the uptake is usually, we get some enthusiasm, maybe 700-800 people in the beginning, and then it kind of, what is new in the zoo for me to take. But your feedback will be great, because these are things you've lived with. Maybe you can tell me things that we've missed in it.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
Most
you.
Interesting. I've been educated, which is great. That's what we're all here to do. And good luck with the rest of things when you get back. Let's hope business, it seems to be growing all over. And once you get the chamber in your hands, you know that you can always press on us. We're always here to help in any way we can.
And a huge thank you to Dan again. You're incredibly important to the industry.
It's a partnership.
Right? It's a partnership, and we couldn't do it without you as well.
That's great. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.